Okay, so now that you have completed your Excel section of phase 2, we can go ahead to the Access section. So this is the last part of your phase 2, and you can start by opening the database that I put in the phase 2 folder for you, which is called Survey Database. You are welcome to change the name if you want to, otherwise you can just leave it like that. So the first thing we are going to do is click on External Data, the tab External Data. Then you will see maybe yours looks a little bit different than mine does. You have also got an import and link group, and you have an export group. Now you should have, depending on what version of Microsoft Office you have, you might have an option, an icon here that says Excel. So you are just going to click on the Excel icon here. I'm going to click over here and say new data source from file, and here I am going to select Excel. So again, you will see this window opening in front of you, and we need to browse now for your Excel spreadsheet that you have used for phase 2. So I'm just going to go through the steps here quickly. Where's mine again? Okay, there's my phase 2. And again, for this purpose, I'm just going to select educators. You might have learners or whatever the case may be, and you choose the one that you have. Okay, this option here can stay selected on import source data into a new table because we are now creating a new table. And okay. Okay, in the next one, you will see that it gives you the options of the worksheets, once again, that you have in your Excel spreadsheet. And as we did with the mail merge, you are going to use your data sheet here, as that one is doesn't have all the calculations and everything on, and we saved that specifically to import into Access. So you pick your data sheet, and you can just say next here. And now this one is quite important, and you're going to make a lot of work for yourself if you don't just tick this little box, because our first row, and you can just say, okay, there, our first row in Excel is our headings. And now you will see when we're done here, those headings will be your field names when you go to design view for your table. So it just makes your life a lot easier. And I'm going to say next here. So this now depends on whether you already have a field here, but we are going to maybe just call this ID, because this will then be our primary key field. So you have an automatic numbering one, okay, and you can just call the field ID, or you can choose what you want to call that. And yeah, it's important. You see, now we have ID1 here. So I'm going to say I want to choose my own primary key, and I'm going to base that on the ID field, or whatever you call that field now. You can set the primary key to that so that you don't have two fields with automatic numbering and it's unnecessary. And from here, I'm going to say next, and you can call your table. Since yours was called data from the Excel spreadsheet, it will probably still be data here. So I'm just going to make mine data and say finish. Here you can just skip this step. You don't have to save your import steps. And there is your data table. Okay, so from here on, I'm going to go to design view. And now I first want to go and look at my assessment rubric to see what I need to do in Access to get marks. So here's my assessment rubric. Let me just go to phase 2 here. And we've now done the questionnaire, we've done Excel, and we're going ahead to database. Okay, so here we have in database the more basic things you get marks for. At least one table created with suitable data. We've done that. You have at least 5 fields. You should have quite a few more than 5 fields, because you are working with your biographical information and your research questions from the Excel spreadsheet. So you will have that mark. All fields have appropriate meaningful names and suitable meaningful description. So there you can just maybe double check that all of your headings are meaningful and it says to the person what they are looking at, and that you have some descriptions. All fields contain single data units. This is, for example, that you don't have the name and field surname in one field, and we had that separate in our Excel spreadsheet, so that should also be fine. Now the next part is the first thing you're going to have to look at in your design view. So in this table that we have, you now need to check that you have the appropriate field sizes to all the text fields. I'll show you that quickly now. A validation rule with validation text, at least one. Now check. You only get marks for 1 year. You get 1 mark for 1 validation rule and 1 validation text. So don't go and try and put 3 or 4 in, and it's especially if you are pressed for time. Just stick to 1. Same thing with the combo list or the combo box and the input mask. 1 mark for 1 input mask, 1 mark for 1 combo box. So we're going to do it and get it done and move on. Okay, so those are the first 4 things we need to quickly look at. Also quickly just look, you need at least 20 appropriate relevant records. So this is like each person's record that is in. So I'm going to go back to the Access database now before I go any further and show you those 4 things with the appropriate field sizes and validation rules and so on. Let's see here. Okay, so here's the design view of my table now. And you can see you already have a number of data types assigned, etc. So just quickly, because this should take you like a minute, for the name field, the person doesn't need to have 255 spaces for characters there. We can maybe make that 20. For the surname, 25 maybe, you can decide. For the gender, since that's really male or female, 10 letters or characters is enough. For the school type, I think 15 should do it. So it's either high school, or maybe we should make it 20, high school or college or technicon or whatever. The position can also, I think, be around 20. That should be enough. The next couple of ones are, so you see, you basically go through whether you have now the educators data that you're working with, or the learners, all the short text or long text data types fields that you have, you go and you just make it an appropriate, realistic field size. Okay, so the next thing is a validation rule. So to me, I think the easiest one for you here is the gender. So in the gender, you can go to the validation rule and simply do just check. You just need to make sure that you're doing the right thing here, because if you have in your Excel spreadsheet or in your table at least to indicate male or female just an M or an F, this is not going to work if you type in male or female. Let me just see what's happening here. Okay, so this should suit the data that you already have in your table. So if you had just an M or an F for each male and female, then yours is going to say M or F here. And obviously then your text should also fit in with that, and you will have to say only male or, ach toch, I'm not going to redo that. You can just go, that was just to show you, female accepted. Okay, so there you have your text and you're done. You can also, if you have another, you can maybe, yeah, for and against, you can say validation rule is only for or against, and your text says, please only type in for or against. Let me see, what else can we use? In your number fields, you can maybe say years in career must be more than 1 or something like that. So, or more than 0 at least. So you can use obviously the validation rule on any other field that you think is suitable, but keep it simple so that you know you will get the marks. Don't overcomplicate it. And yeah, I gave you a nice idea now, and you can use it or try something else depending on how you feel. The next one that we got marks for is the combo box. Again, here, I would strongly suggest taking one of your fields that only has 2 or 3 options, because if I can go back to the data sheet view here quickly. If I decide maybe to like do it on the school type, then be very careful, because if I have high school in here, then it has to be exactly the same. High school with a capital letter S and a space in between. Technicon, spelled correctly. Primary school, space in the middle, capital letter S. So now I have to go and check what all the entries that I already have here are, and make sure that I have an option for each entry, and that I have the correct spelling, capital letters, all those things are important. Same with, for example, the position. If you give the people options in combo boxes, then you have to write down now and make sure that you have an option for deputy principal, and that you don't maybe say vice principal, and that you have an option for HOD, and you don't type out maybe head of department, that your options that you put in your combo list fit in with the options that you have on your data table already. So my suggestion is maybe then going to the for and against, or again, the gender. You can do a combo box on the gender. But if you obviously already have the validation rule, you'd rather go to for and against, or vice versa. Okay, so let me quickly go through the combo box with you. Here, where you have the data type, you click on your arrow to select the data type, and you click on the lookup wizard. So from here, I'm going to say that I want to type in the values myself, and that I'm not getting the values from another table or query, right? So you are picking that, you are going to type it in. Next, now I'm going to type in my 2 options there. I'm on the field with the for or against. Okay. And next, and I'm going to say that I want to limit the list, because I don't want someone to be able to type in their own option there. That's the whole point of the combo list. And finish. Okay, you can click on the lookup tab here. There you can see it worked. Your combo box is in, and you can also go back to your data sheet view and check under your for and against options there. You can see that you have now a combo box. Okay. Then the last thing for that part of the access is the input mask sheet. Once again, I'm going to strongly suggest that you keep it very simple. Get an input mask sheet in front of you, whether it's from your textbook or you've Googled it. And for my kids, I gave you guys an input mask sheet that you pasted into your book at the beginning of the year. So you do have access to all of those things. Please use your input mask sheet. So what I meant with keep it very simple is I can, for example, say in years in career, just go back to general here now, that my input mask sheet is the person is probably going to have at least 1 year's experience. So 1 number is required. And we know hopefully that the 0 is the representation for a required number, and that it has an optional second number, because I have to give those people with between 1 and 9 years experience. I can't force them to type in 2 digits, which would then would not allow a person with 4 years experience, for example, to type in just a 4, but also allow for someone with over 10 years experience to type in 10, 11, 12, whatever, because I'm giving them the optional second number, and the 9 represents that optional digit. So obviously, I also know that someone won't have more than 99 years experience, so I don't need to put in space for a third number to be inserted. All right, so as I said, keep it simple. You can definitely go onto any other field and put an input mask in there if you want to maybe just make it a little bit more interesting, or if you are confident with your input mask sheet, please make your own decision in that sense and try something new. Okay, so now I am going to go back to my assessment rubric and see what's next. Okay, so I have my appropriate sizes, I've got my validation rule, I've got my combo box, and I've got my input mask and my 20 records. Now you will see this next part is kind of a two-part mark, because you get a mark for one relevant query that is correct and meaningful. Please, that meaningful is very important. I must actually learn something when I look at your query, like what have we found out from this research that we've done? What have we found out from this questionnaire that we have compiled? And then obviously the same with the other two. A second relevant query that's correct and meaningful, a third relevant query that is correct and meaningful, and those three you get a mark for only if they are meaningful and we learn something from it. Then at the bottom here, we have now a separate requirement for our queries. So as we have with the Excel spreadsheet, different levels for different calculations and functions, we also now have different levels for the complexity of the queries. So I'm just going to run through it quickly for you, and then I'll quickly just go through the query wizard with you to make sure that you can do that. So only fields with one simple criterion. So you can just have in your criteria field like one criteria. So I can maybe say that I just want to see how many educators filled in my questionnaire, or how many learners that have smartphones. And that's maybe a nice one. Pull out the names of learners who do not own or do own a smartphone. And that's just one simple criterion. Your second one is a combined criteria with using conditionals in relation to qualifications, sorry, I mean the greater than, smaller than signs, or between something and something, or with a criterion computing, including a wild card. Okay, so there it becomes a little bit more complicated, obviously. And then in the level 3, a simple calculated field or arithmetic operators, or a date and time function or calculation. There, I've suggested that, once again, don't overcomplicate it too much. You can maybe take one of the numbers that you have that is per month. Like, for example, we did the amount of online meetings per month that a teacher attends. And then you add a new field, a calculated field in your query that divides it by 4 so that we know what is the amount per week, for example. Or in for the learners, you can maybe do the amount of data that they use per month divided by 12 to see how much they use per year. Did I say divided by times? I mean times. Or also divided by 4 maybe to see per week, or whatever. You have the options to do those things. And then the last one is the calculated field, and the grouping, which is actually not that bad. You just activate your totals field in the query, but I'll quickly show you that too. And you can do an average maybe on one of your fields, like for example with the teachers, there are average online meetings before and average online meetings after COVID. Okay, so we will quickly look at the report lastly before I end off, but let's just go through the query wizard quickly in Access. Come on, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to close my table when I'm done with it. And I'm going to say create. query wizard, just check there's a query design and a query wizard. Click the query wizard. We're doing a simple query and okay. And now you obviously have to know what you want to do for you to decide which fields you want to use. So let's say, for example, for my first very simple level 1 query, I want to see the name and surname and the, what was my example again? School type, position, and whether they are for or against. Let's say that. And then I'm going to say next. Open. Let's call, this is an important part because you have to tell your teacher exactly what the query is about, what you wanted. So I'm going to say educators against online meetings. Now, please make sure whatever the query is that you are creating, that it makes sense, okay? If you said that in your questionnaire, this question is, are you for or against online teaching? Then you can't put in meetings here now because you're not giving the correct information. So if in your questionnaire for the for and against field, you said for or against online teaching or for or against WhatsApp or whatever the case may be, then just make sure that your name of your query fits in with that once again. And then obviously if you're on the learners table or data, then you will use your query on something else. Okay, so I'm going to finish here. And then I have to go to design view. And here I only want the against. Okay, let's run it. Okay, so there are all the educators who are against, whether it's now online meetings or online teaching or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to go back to the design view of this same query to just quickly take you through the other levels. And I don't want to help you too much here because I want you to try this on your own. So for the next one, the level 2, you will maybe have I was trying to remember, yeah. So if you add, please remember that you are now going to create a separate query for every level. So this is my level 1. I'm going to save and close it. And then I start again with my query wizard for level 2. I'm not going to go through that every time with you. I'm just going to run you through how to do the different levels. So for that purpose, I'm now quickly going to add a field here. I'm going to do online meetings after COVID. And I'm going to say that my criteria is greater than 4. So I'm going to take this out because you are now obviously on a new query. If you're doing this one, maybe I want to see the educators who have more than 4 online meetings per month after COVID. And then I will name my query to fit in with that. Okay, so that's the level 2. And you can maybe even take it one step further and say you want to see only the HODs. Let's use that. HOD with more than 4 meetings. And look, there's no one. Okay, so I'm going to change it. But you can now play around with it and make sure that you have something, once again, meaningful that makes sense. Then your level 3 is the calculated field. Please remember, and this you can go through your textbook again. There's some nice examples of how to do calculated fields, and it explains it to you nicely. So first I'm going to type in the name that I want to give this new field. So I'm going to say online per week. And then there has to be the colon. You have to have the colon. You have to have a square bracket when you are using one of your other fields. It's like referring to a cell in Excel. I have to have the correct name there. So I'm going to say online meetings. Oh, it's a very long one that I've chosen here, per month. Let me just see what this name is. See, I can't even go on. You now just check before the thumbnail, and you can always enlarge your things here to make sure that you can see nicely. Online meetings per month post COVID. And I'm just going to say divided by 4. Let's see if that worked. Run. You see here. Okay, let me go back and see what went wrong. Online meetings per week. Show. Okay, display field. Online meetings per week. And there we go. Okay, so that's a simple calculated field that you can use. And then the last one I quickly want to show you for your level 4 is actually also quite simple. Here is this magic little button, the totals row. And here you can select a group by. So we can even say we want to group it by position. But then you are going to have to remove these fields. So if you do a grouping, my suggestion is take you're going to most now create a new query with using your query wizard, and then you can maybe pick your positions field and your online meetings before and or after, either one. Okay, so just pick those 2 fields. Then when you activate your totals row here, say you group by position and you want the average of the online meetings per month. And then obviously it's not going to work now because I have the surnames and the names and everything, so it can't group if it has all those details. But if you only pick those 2 fields, and now you're going to have to check if you have the learners field or any other data that you're working with, only pick 2 fields, one with a number and one where you can group the people by, and pick those 2, do the group by on the one and the average on the other one, and that should work fine. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here and put the report on the next video for your last bit of phase 2. Good luck.